Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
5:06. Good morning. This Wednesday, 9th day of July on O'Connor and Company. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for making time in your busy schedule for us. It'll pay off, though, because at 6:35, we're going to talk to Cal Thomas, 7:05, Ned Ryan from American Majority about the FBI finally launching criminal investigations into John Brennan and James Comey. That's a start on the Russian collusion hoax. Then at 7:35, Robin Ficker is running for Congress in Maryland. 8:05, our pal, our friend, sweetest woman in the business, Selena Zito. She's got a brand new book all about that day in Butler. She was there, front row. And this book is going to be a groundbreaking adventure. At 8:35, David Bernstein will join us. Talk about Josh Shapiro. I keep hearing Josh Shapiro is fantastic. He can't even get nominated because he's such a strong ally to Israel. Not so fast, actually. We'll get into the details of that and how the Democrat Party has gotten so anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and pro-Hamas. Where did that come from? How did that happen? That's coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bethany Mandel. It's something you and I have talked about forever, offline, too. There's some things that in American politics you could sort of count on not being partisan, not being sort of something that splits America. Support for Israel has always been one of those things. You know, but opposing terrorist groups has always been one of those things. And now we wake up in 2025 and we see that the mainstream of the Democrat Party is flirting with this pro-Hamas, if not outright saying that they're on Hamas's side in the conflict. Like the day after October 7th, they were calling for, a two-state solution. There it is. We got to give these murderous terrorists exactly what they demand. I don't know how we got here.
The Mamdani, the guy who's running for mayor in New York City, his day after tweets of October 7th should have been disqualifying.
Yes.
And yet here, I was reasonably assured that Jews controlled politics and that AIPAC had everyone in their pockets.
That's right.
Obviously not.
And the media.
So what I learned is that New York City is the most Jewish city in the world. Not in America, in the world. And yet a full-blown anti-Semite is poised to become mayor.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
His tweets on October 8th, he literally was both sidesing it.
Yes. Yes.
He was literally saying, yes, well, there's guilt to be shown. No, one side has 1,000 people lying in blood right now.
Yep. It's really scary.
That said, Bethany, part of the problem here is, for a fact that Mamdani won that nomination thanks in large part to Jewish voters.
No, actually, so he won very few Jewish voters. The Jews are strangely not the problem on this one.
Oh, all right. I thought I saw a poll that showed that he had support.
20% or so. But there was lines that were 2 hours long in Jewish neighborhoods in Brooklyn.
All of them play that game.
Yeah. No. The Jews were standing in lines in Brooklyn for two and a half hours. They should have early voted instead of standing in line in 100 degrees. But there was a real, albeit late, groundswell of Jewish, activism against Mamdani.
Oh, good.
But you know who it was? It was the college-educated white folks. We're the bad guys. So it's really sad. It's really scary. And what's been very frustrating is watching Cuomo stay in the race. He just completely,
I'm shocked that he's staying in the race.
It's really, really selfish and not something I expected from Andy Cuomo. He's such a mensch normally, and yet he's behaving in this way.
Nice. I know. It's so out of character for him. We should get Janice Dean on to talk about that, about his good character and what a fine individual he is. No, you're right. It's completely in character. Yeah. We've been waiting for, and I've been saying out loud multiple times on this program, that a good, respectable, Democrat with, some kind of chutzpah and some sort of, actual following and like an elder statesman of the party needs to step forward and say, guys, we got to not split this ticket. We got to coalesce around somebody so that we can stop Mamdani. I don't care who it is. If it means Eric Adams, we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it seems like that man may have emerged yesterday. Former governor of New York, David Paterson, wrote a letter to his fellow Democrats. Really, it's targeting Andrew Cuomo, saying, figure it out. Either we coalesce around Eric Adams, we coalesce around Andrew Cuomo, or we coalesce around Curtis Sliwa. But we've got to stop. He's the first prominent Democrat in New York has said, no, Mamdani does not represent me, and he does not represent our party's values and principles.
What I was surprised and very disappointed by was Richie Torres's statements, basically standing behind Mamdani because he's the party candidate in New York City. Torres is beloved in the Jewish community. I have seen him at events where there are hostage families. He knows every single family member by name. They love him. They give him hugs. When he goes to the local Jewish school that's in his district, it's called SAR in Riverdale, he gets a hero's welcome. He is beloved in the Jewish community. And seeing him, not enthusiastically, but basically getting in line behind Mamdani because he was the candidate was extremely, extremely disappointing. And I understand that, he's put his neck on the line in a really big way for Israel. And it's not unappreciated from the Jewish community that he's done so. But if Mamdani is elected in New York City, the exodus that we're going to see from New York, American Jews can trace our roots back to New York. New York City is it for us. My children were the first children on both my side and Seth's side that were born outside of New York and New Jersey in our families, both of our families, entire time in America.
Wow.
It's to see New York fall, and I think that's what we would see if Mamdani is elected, would be a really historic moment for American Jewry. And it's the most Jewish city in the world, and it won't be at the end of a Mamdani mayoral.
I haven't seen John Fetterman asked about Mamdani, let alone express an opinion about it, and I think that would be enlightening as well to see, because John Fetterman likes to be a bit of a maverick. It is also interesting when you mention Richie Torres and the fact that he is falling in line, is that a lot of the people that you're seeing sort of backing the party candidate because that's what you do for your party are in many respects the same people who were lecturing Republicans in 2016 for daring to back the Republican candidate Donald Trump, who, as problematic and as challenging as he was as a maverick, unconventional political figure at the time, I think Donald Trump in 2020 and 2024 obviously are very different animals. But I had some understanding for 2016 Republicans who were reluctant to say, okay, this is our guy now. I get that, I do. But at the same time, most people like me said, listen, we had a process. He won. He's our nominee. I find Zohran Mamdani much more problematic than 2016 Donald Trump. And yet those people who said, how dare you put your party in front of your country, are putting their party in front of their city.
So interestingly, I looked it up. John Fetterman warned that Mamdani would he said, I'd describe it as Christmas in July for the GOP.
Okay.
I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that, because it's not Christmas in July in New York
I'm not
City.
happy about it at all, but I understand what he's saying. It is a gift. He thinks this helps because it helps the Republicans to find the Democrats as the Mamdani party.
Right. I think nationally that's absolutely true. And it really stakes out, the both parties' positions on not just Israel, but the fate of the West. Yeah. Interestingly enough, can we sidebar for a moment? Did you see the King of England's statement on the anniversary of the 7/7 attacks? It was the 20th anniversary.
Yes. He couldn't make it 3 paragraphs without, in some way, bending the knee.
The passive voice
and,
was off the charts.
We're still trying to figure out how this happened. And if only we had tolerance for each other.
All lives matter.
Yes, all lives matter. Yeah.
And the phrasing was as if it was a natural disaster. Lives lost. No, people got on buses and on the tube and blew people to pieces.
That's right.
It was not a natural disaster.
And blew them up because of their ethnicity and their religion and their nationality.
Yep.
And his mother is very disappointed, I assure you.
Be.
His mother would never. Coming up. All right, enough of that with New York. They've made their bed. Coming up, we've got great news that we can now confirm. Yesterday it was a rumor. We discussed that it might happen. It happened. TSA is going to let your little putties free when you go through. No, wait. Actually, it's the other way around. You don't have to free up your little putties when you go through TSA. Keep those shoes on. We'll give you all the details next.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
It was about 20 years ago when a really crazy-looking radical Muslim terrorist tried to set his shoes on fire in the middle of a flight from Europe to Miami, and he was wrestled to the ground, thankfully, and stopped from carrying out his wishes, which was to set fire to the explosives that had been embedded into his Nikes. And from that moment forward, for nearly 2 decades, you and I have had to take off our shoes when going through the security screening at airports. And as of yesterday, that process has now ended. And that's a pretty big deal. Here's Kristi Noem, Homeland Security Secretary, making the announcement.
We have some very exciting news to announce that today we have started a new no shoes policy with the Department, the Transportation Security Administration. TSA will no longer require travelers to remove their shoes when they go through our security checkpoints. This is something that I know for quite some time people have talked about and discussed, and we know that when President Trump was elected that he pledged to make life better for all Americans, and that includes those who are travelers going through our busy airports. We want to improve this travel experience, but while maintaining safety standards and making sure that we are keeping people safe as they go to take their vacations, travel for work, or spend time with their families. So we took a hard look at how TSA does its business, how it does its screening processes, and what we do to make people safe, but also provide some hospitality as well.
There's some hospitality for you. So there you go. I mean, the threat is still there, Bethany. It's the technology has improved at such a level that they believe they can detect explosives now through the screening process without having to take off the shoes. So there it is.
I have gone through with my baby and my stroller, and they wipe my hands to check for explosives. Mm-hmm. They've been able to do this for a long time. I think the most important part of this announcement was actually the White House tweet. Whoever's running social media for the White House deserves a raise. Put yo dogs away. Trump admin ended the TSA shoes off policy. Feet covered, air quality restored. I tweeted this at the time. I did not know that I voted for this, but this is what I voted for. I'm joking around, and I'm thrilled. But this is like really common sense stuff.
Yeah.
I have been deeply disturbed by how inept TSA is, and I think this is a great first step. Heather, our producer before the show, said next stop liquids.
Yeah.
Could not agree more.
Let's fix the liquid thing.
It's ridiculous, and it's so disruptive. I truly do not understand why we are in 2025. It makes us all less safe. It creates this false sense of security that endangers all of us, and it's such a giant waste of money and a hassle. And I'm glad that this is step one, but it has to be step one.
And again, whenever, especially in this area where so many people work for the federal government at various levels, when we talk about our personal experiences with TSA, we're trying not to paint with a broad brush and say that, all of them are like this, all of them are like that. But I will tell you, from my personal experience, there is a predominant sense of just sort of going through the motions that happens at TSA now. That edge has been lost. Mm-hmm. I don't get that sense of confidence. And by the way, here in the D.C. area, we probably have the best of the best working at Reagan Airport and at Dulles Airport. And you know what? They're pretty efficient, I have to say. They're not as bad as other airports that I've had to deal with. But you do get the sense that it's just another job. This is a pet peeve of mine, but when I'm in line and I'm getting screened for security to make sure that our plane is safe from a terrorist attack, and the people wearing badges doing those screenings are like arguing with each other about their next shift and what they're when they get to take their next 10-minute break, and what LaToya said yesterday during lunch that ticked you off. Take care of that for me, please, Michael. Thank you. It's your fault, Bethany. And it doesn't. They act like they're working at Wendy's, in the overnight shift instead of actually there to be the front line of protection for a terror attack. I think oftentimes the problem at TSA is a personnel and training problem.
I mean, when you pay people minimum wage, you get minimum wage.
Oh, they're getting more than minimum wage, though.
Really?
They are. They're getting. They're not union employees, but they're federal employees. They're doing pretty okay.
I don't know.
They're doing pretty okay.
I mean, I
don't like it when I get better service at the Five Guys in the airport than I'm getting at the TSA as I'm screening to go into the airport.
I know that it's not scalable, but what they do in Tel Aviv and what they do for all flights that are headed toward Israel makes so much sense because they look at you as a threat possibility and don't even the screening is very minimal. Yeah. They look you up and down. I will never forget when I was entering Israel with Seth when we were very newly married. Or no, we weren't even married yet. They pulled me aside for 45 minutes to an hour and questioned me and straight on interrogated me because I had so many weird passport stamps. I had a weird name. And Seth, they looked at his passport and they're like, "Hello, sir. Have you ever thought about moving here?"
Right.
And I was like, "Hello, I'm over here."
Well, you know why they screened you and gave you so much scrutiny.
Because my last name was Murphy.
Are you going to marry that man? And when you do, are you going to convert?
No, it's because I had so many weird. They were like, "Why do you live in Cambodia? What is this? Why would someone do such a thing?" And then they interrogated me for 45 minutes. But that's it. You have to look at people as, is this person a potential threat or is this person not a potential threat? Yeah. And don't spend my favorite thing. I will say, though, this actually happened in London. My 3-year-old, when we were flying home from London, London has the same issues. This is not unique to America. They had him stand on a box because he wasn't tall enough.
For the scanner.
For the spread. And then he spread eagle. And then he kept jumping off because he thought it was a game.
Yeah.
And they couldn't scan him, and so then they had to totally pat him down. And I thought to myself, do you think this curly, redheaded little 3-year-old is the reason why this entire line has to be held up?
Right.
But they're automatons.
Right. And they don't have the ability to make the judgment and say, "Yeah, you're fine, man. Just take the 3-year-old." Yeah.
So it's a problem all over the world. But I'm glad that what happens in America, spreads to the rest.
It should have a domino effect, and we're leading the way. And so keep your shoes on from now on. That's life has just gotten a little bit better. Thank you, President Trump and Secretary Noem. It's 5:25. Coming up, it looks like the FBI is officially investigating John Brennan and James Comey over the Russiagate probe. We'll give you the details next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36. It's O'Connor and Company, and if you're keeping score today, it's Larry 1, Bethany 0 in terms of saying inappropriate words on the air. Now, last time you were on, Bethany, you beat me 1-0. So
now we're even. So now I guess tomorrow, because I'm back tomorrow.
Let's just leave it as a tie.
I was so excited when you did that. I didn't know that was a rule.
Yes.
And then when we went to commercial, everyone was like, "Oh, I'm so about that."
It's your fault.
Yeah, but I didn't know better. You did, my friend.
Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas, who is a potty mouth. My God, it's like having Howard Stern on the air. He'll join us. At 7:05, Ned Ryan, American Majority. 7:35, Robin Ficker running for Congress in Montgomery County and Frederick County, Maryland 6. And 8:05, Selena Zito, her brand new book out yesterday, Butler. She had a front row seat, literally, to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. But I'll tell you, this book is about a lot more than just that day at Butler. Nobody covers Trump presidencies like Selena Zito. And then at 8:35, David Bernstein will join us. It's Larry O'Connor with the aforementioned Bethany Mandel, potty mouth. I'm very thrilled to see that the FBI, 6 months into the new regime, has announced that they have launched a criminal investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan, or as our friend Chris Plant calls him, penitentiary face, John Brennan. and ex-FBI Director James Comey. They're being investigated for potential criminal conduct related to the 2016 Trump-Russia probe. This is a referral involving Brennan passed to the FBI by current CIA Director John Ratcliffe. So this means the CIA took a look at their internal operations during the Russian collusion probe, and former Congressman Ratcliffe and now CIA Director Ratcliffe looked at that and said, yeah, you know what, this was unorthodox, this was outside of the bounds. My predecessor, John Brennan, deserves to be investigated for criminal conduct. Now, before anybody gets too excited, I have always known that their behavior was outside of the lines, that it was inappropriate, that it was wrong, and at the very least, Donald Trump's civil rights had been violated by the Obama administration. And also, let me reiterate, that all of the conduct that happened here was under the oversight, if not direct authorization, of President Barack Obama. We know for a fact that there was a briefing done to the president directly from CIA Director John Brennan, where the president was informed that the Clinton campaign was creating the Steele dossier that was used as the impetus for the investigation into Donald Trump. The CIA Director John Brennan at the time knew that it was a campaign product from the Clinton campaign. Obama knew it as well. They knew that early in the game. So there was full knowledge of exactly what was in this dossier and how, flimsy it was. And so when they all knew that this dossier was the tipping point and impetus for the Crossfire Hurricane FBI investigation, which then led to the FISA warrants, et cetera, they all knew that the origins of the investigation was bull. That said, before anybody gets excited, I've always assumed that they knew exactly where the criminal lines were. Don't forget, there was that meeting in the Oval Office after Trump had won the election. Susan Rice made notes, wrote a memo to herself detailing the meeting. Who does that? Just so that it was on the record that Barack Obama told everybody to play this one by the book. Why does a president need to remind everybody to play it by the book? This whole thing has been set up in such a way that they have all covered their butts, and I will be astonished if any criminal charges are actually leveled against these guys ultimately. But the fact that they've got to sweat it out and actually have to defend themselves, and hopefully more information comes out about their conduct, that's a good thing. And so far, that's enough for me. But let's learn more. Maybe I'll be, getting my torches and pitchforks ready to demand indictments. But this is a long time coming, Bethany Mandel.
Yeah. I disagree with you that Jim Comey was smart enough to cover his butt, because I've seen what he says on Twitter.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
So
you know what? Now that I think about it,
I don't know. I think one of the biggest unintended gifts of Twitter was seeing how absolutely crazy people who were in charge of our intelligence services are. It's honestly terrifying. They really let their judgment be clouded by their hatred of Trump. I agree with you that I don't think that anything will happen, because it will look a little too Banana Republic to actually, charge them and go through with that. And I think that...
By the way, even though what they did was literally Banana Republic stuff.
100%.
But then when people come in who have been elected to look into it and they say, oh, yeah, this is criminal conduct, then suddenly it's Banana Republic, according to the New York Times.
And what's funny to me is, I tell this story a lot because it's one of my favorite things. On election night in Pennsylvania, there were exit polls of voters. And the initial exit polls indicated that the people who voted for preserving democracy, that was a big voting reason for a lot of the people in line in Pennsylvania. And Democrats were like hooting and hollering and high-fiving. They're like, yeah, we're going to win Pennsylvania. And then when we found out how those people voted after the polls closed and after the votes were counted, the majority of the people who voted to preserve democracy voted for Donald J. Trump.
There you
go. Because of stuff like this, because it was terrifying Banana Republic stuff that they were doing in the intermediary between 45 and 47 terms.
Yep.
And I was terrified for the future of our democracy by Democrats, by people like Jim Comey, by Joe Biden.
That's right. That's right. I'm one of those voters. I do.
Yes.
When they asked me, is preserving democracy important to you? I said, yes. That's why I want voter ID. That's why I want voter rolls cleaned up. That's why I want people who break the law under the color of authority at the highest levels of our investigative bodies like the DOJ, the FBI, and the intelligence community. I want them held accountable because I want to preserve democracy. I'm a Republican.
And I don't want to give these people the win. I don't want to say your reward for doing all of this absolutely bonkers stuff for 4 years against Donald Trump is you win another term.
That's right.
Forget that.
And the only reason that I'm being reticent, by the way, the report, just pulling from the article here, the report found that Brennan, Comey, and then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper were excessively involved in the drafting of the assessment and in a chaotic, atypical, markedly unconventional process. According to CIA Director Ratcliffe, quote, this was Obama, Comey, Clapper, and Brennan deciding we're going to screw Trump, unquote. And listen, as political figures, they can say they want to screw Trump. But when you use your authority as the head of the FBI, as the head of the CIA, as the president of the United States, when you use your power to try to screw the guy who just won the election, that should be criminal. I think it is criminal. The only reason I'm trying to tamp down expectations is because, sadly, too many people with the power and influence of a microphone like this promise people that there's going to be perp walks and people are going to be in orange jumpsuits and they're going to be in cuffs and they're going to get the book. And if you don't know that, if you don't look at our society, sadly, and our federal government with a somewhat jaundiced, cynical view, I don't want to overpromise to people that that's what's going to happen. I'm assuming they're going to skate. That doesn't mean they will. But that should be your expectation.
I think that's realistic. I think that's being pragmatic. I don't think that's being jaundiced or cynical. I think it's pragmatism. I think you're right.
But let's see. The fact that we now have headlines saying Comey and Brennan are under criminal investigation, that's a great start.
And they're not bright crayon.
Breaking news and the inside story on 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
We had a big Supreme Court decision yesterday, 8-1 decision that basically affirms that the President of the United States is, in fact, allowed to manage the executive branch of government, which, again, isn't much of a stretch because it's literally written right there in Article 2 of the Constitution. But, of course, that meant that Ketanji Brown Jackson had to take issue with this idea. At stake here was whether the president was allowed to fire government workers or put government workers on layoff if the president determines through the executive branch's evaluation that those workers are no longer needed. It seems like a pretty simple case. And again, this has nothing to do with the merits about whether someone should or shouldn't be fired and how devastating that might be to a family, et cetera, et cetera. It just says, is the president allowed to do this? Does the president run the executive branch? And it turns out, yes, in fact, the president does run the executive branch. And I'm glad that this was expedited. You know, usually these things take a long time, but, you know, obviously the layoffs began in early February of this year, and now here it is early July, and we have the decision. Also, Bethany, well, quickly, just for your reflection on that, because, again, it's a constitutional issue, and this is what frustrates me about people who can't sort of look past their political bias and recognize, I may not like what the executive branch is doing. I may not like what this president's doing, but he has the right to do it. He's the president.
Yep. I am glad, honestly. There was a lot of people who, you know, I know personally who were really panicked about the fact that the Supreme Court was sitting on this decision.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for everyone to be able to move forward one way or the other, I think it's important that this decision was, you know, put down. I was nervous that it wouldn't be when you know, we got that last decision day that this would sort of be kicked down the can. So I'm glad for everyone's sake that this decision came down. But, you know, this is what people voted for. People voted for a slimming down of the government. And, you know, if you don't like it, then, you know how to vote next November. But
no one should act surprised that President Trump came in and had his team reevaluate every government agency because he literally said he would do that.
Yeah.
One of the subtexts of this decision, though, is the 8-1 decision and the fact that Kagan and Sotomayor joined the majority and Ketanji Brown Jackson stood alone. And even more so, the opinion written by Justice Sotomayor, a concurrence to the majority, basically she called out her own liberal colleague, Ketanji Brown Jackson, not unlike what Amy Coney Barrett did in her last decision, by basically isolating Ketanji Brown Jackson as someone who is spending way too much time watching Rachel Maddow instead of actually reading law books. It's an astounding sort of public smackdown of this justice.
I mean, when you say that you don't know what a woman is, despite being a Supreme Court justice, I don't know where you go from there. It's really embarrassing, and when every other liberal justice on the court sides with you, I mean, she seems to have her finger in the air to see where it's blowing, as if it matters. That I want the job security of a SCOTUS justice to be like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to do what I want.
Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. Yeah, Clarence Thomas has got to be sitting there saying, these people called me a token 30 years ago, and I worked my butt off to get here. Look at this woman. Yep. And you mentioned that question and answer from Senator Blackburn about can you define what a woman is, and that was a isolating moment with regard to the transgender issue in America, and where liberal intellectuals sort of position themselves where they couldn't presume to suggest they know what a woman is. But it actually, frankly, was even more revealing about Ketanji Brown Jackson's intellect and her ability to think on her feet and actually evaluate and discern a situation in real time. And boy, is it manifesting right now in her behavior on the court.
Yeah, and it's deeply embarrassing. And I wonder how much shame she's able to have about it, or if she's has that level of self-reflection, or, and I think this is the more likely scenario, she has ensconced herself in such a bubble ideologically that she just can't see outside of it. And that is a problem, especially when you live in this area, because, you can put yourself in a bubble as a liberal.
That's right.
You can. All your neighbors are libs.
Bethany, she got a $2 million advance for her memoir. She's celebrated. She's put out. No, she will be lifted up on the left's shoulders as a heroic figure, fighting the fight. She'll be Ruth Bader Ginsburg at some point, even though she's an intellectual midget compared to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who I didn't agree with. But you can't deny her
intellect, absolutely.
prowess. Yeah, and no, she will absolutely be is ensconced in that protective bubble, and she will continue to be an embarrassment. And God bless her. God bless her. When you've lost Sotomayor, you're really isolated. It's 5:54.